Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I'm Rebecca Weber. You're watching Better for America, sponsored by AMAC, the Association of Mature American Citizens. Joining me now is David Brat. He's a former congressman from Virginia, and currently he serves as the vice president for external relations for Liberty University. Dave, thank you so much for being here.
A pleasure to be on. Thanks for having me.
So, Dave, we've got lots of members, 2 million strong.
Yep, right.
Tell our membership a little bit about Liberty University. This is one of the few universities around that is doing some great work and really looking out for future generations.
Yeah, no, we're very proud of our students. I love going in every day. I used to be dean of the business school, and I would have events, and the students would help me set up and tear down. At the end of the night, it's late, they'd come up to me, "Hey, Dean Brat, is there anything else I can do to help out?" I did not do that in college, right? These kids they got a work ethic. They're nice. I work out in the gym in the morning still with them, and they're doing their Bible devotions in the morning. For people who don't know the scale of Liberty University, we have 16,000 students on campus and 140,000 total students all over the country at present, right? Through online education, masters, PhDs, and everything. And so we stuck to our knitting. Harvard's motto in 1640 was truth for Christ and church. I won't comment on Harvard right now, but we've stuck to our knitting on that. We train champions for Christ, believe in the life of the mind, and so I'm proud of our university.
I love it, and we need more just like it. So, in your view, when you look at universities across America, education as a whole, what do you think is some of the greatest threats that are younger people, moms, dads, grandparents should be aware of? What's going on out there?
Yeah, well, if you want to get serious on that question, I'll refer people to a book by Alan Bloom, great University of Chicago philosopher, called Closing of the American Mind. He wrote that back in the 80s, New York Times bestseller. He's a conservative philosopher, translated Plato and Rousseau, etc., highest caliber philosopher in the world. And his opening line says, young people out there today only believe that there's one absolute and that there are no absolutes, right? So it's kind of this, there's no search for the truth even anymore. So it begs the question, what are universities doing, right? If they can't tell you as a parent or grandparent, et cetera, what in the world they're pursuing, if they can't define what truth is and how you pursue truth, that's a major problem. And then if you just want to look at the more trivial level, I know consultants that consult in higher education, parents and kids in their demands for higher education, they don't list education in the top 10 things they want from a university. They want a good food court, a good reputation, good curb appeal, good football team, good reputation to get jobs. No one lists education as being one of the top 10 things you want from a university. This is a problem, right? And so,
huge problem.
So yeah, that's all laid out by Bloom in the closing. But we've lost track of the true, the beautiful, the good, the things that inspire young people. And instead, the neo-Marxist tradition is pitting everybody against each other, men and women and races and whatever. The Judeo-Christian tradition, by contrast, teaches we're all made in the image of God, and that the two great commands are love God and love your neighbor, period. Right? So, I mean, it's like, this is not complex. But if you detect stress in modern society, you got to ask, where is it coming from? And higher ed is largely responsible for part of this decay.
A lot of people wonder, how this is seeping in and what's really the pivotal, at what point did things change so much? And I do think that DEI, this diversity, equity, inclusion, and people marching to those orders has really been a catalyst for what we're now seeing across universities, and that's anti-Semitism.
Yes.
Do you see a correlation of sort of the tenets of DEI and how that might promote or be a catalyst for anti-Semitism across our universities?
Yeah, sure. I mean, if you just look, right, I taught history of thought for 20 years. I taught economics. I taught philosophy and theology. And if you ask DEI, like, who put DEI in charge of the world? And where did it come from? What philosophical school do you derive DEI, right? Diversity, equity, inclusion. There must be something else to it, right? I mean, does DEI define our universe? And it's kind of the same thing at ESG in the corporate world, right? Environmental stuff, social do-gooders, and corporate governance. Well, all these terms sound good, right? It's like, how can you be opposed to this? But then when you find out that BlackRock, right, Larry Fink, the $10 trillion man, is investing half of his portfolio into China, you scratch your head and you say, well, where's this coming from? Right? This ESG, China has the worst environment in the world. They don't do social good, right? Xi Jinping just gave his speech. They're going full-on Marxist-Leninist, and they don't know what corporate governance is. So again, where's this stuff coming from? Where it's coming from is the left. The left wants control and power, and they want control over your kid's mind. And so if you're interested in your kid's mind, which I hope you all are, parents and grandparents need to get involved.
They sure do.
In their schools, and they need to elect good leaders who will line up a good republic. All of the founders knew that, Ben Franklin had the famous phrase, it's a republic if you can keep it. And it was designed for a good and ethical people. What is ethical? There's no such thing as ethics. There's Christian ethics, there's Buddhist ethics, there's Aristotelian ethics, there's Kantian ethics. There's no such thing as ethics. So we've been so miseducated, all people have to do is say DEI ethics. And people go, oh, that's so nice.
Yeah.
It's not nice.
And we see how DEI, ESG, and all of these really Marxist policies are impacting. They're not only going after our children, they're going after your wallet. They're going after our wallet. We see this happening.
Money.
Right? It's all about. So I want to talk a little bit about the economy and what we see happening. Just recently, I heard Janet Yellen a couple of weeks ago say that, we're not worried about inflation. It's here to stay. Prices won't go down, but wages are going up. So don't fear. Ignoring entirely the fact that the Biden administration has gone on a complete spending spree, and average Americans know it, feel it, see it. It hits their wallet.
All right.
What's your perspective on the economy and your outlook?
Yeah, well, inflation, the mainstream media will never tell you the basic truth of inflation, right? So over the past 4 years, you've lost 20% in purchasing power of your dollar. So that's the money in your wallet. When you go to the grocery store, you see the high prices. But that's just the beginning. That 20% loss in your purchasing power is also your retirement account now. It just lost 20% of its value due to inflation. When you take that money out, you're now going to buy products that are way more expensive. And just to put it real simply, if you haven't, just say you have inflation, which is roughly what we had, of 10 and then 5 and then 5. Right? So on the news, they say, well, this is great news. Inflation's down. It was 10 and now it's 5 and 5. And now the core's at 4. No, that's not. Nowhere in that story did prices go down, as you said. Inflation went down, but prices went up first by 10%, and then they went up by another 5%, and now they're still going up at 4 or 5%. Prices are still going up, not down. So you've lost 20% of your purchasing power. This is the issue that's got the politics roiled, right? Axios and all the big news, they're hinting to the White House, hey, you better get your ducks in a row, because people don't understand K-12 education. It's complex. That's a tragedy. People don't understand what 50 trillion in debt looks like in 10 years. That's the CBO number. People don't understand the most problematic economic statistic is CBO has us growing at 1.5% GDP growth for the next 20 years. Ooh. That's Congressional Budget Office. Why? Because productivity is growing at 1.5% only for the next 20 years. Kids, you listening? Yeah. This is your world. And so there's all sorts of problematic stuff. And then they come out and say the economy's doing great. The economy's dead. The stock market is going up, right? Because the Federal Reserve juiced the economy with $8 trillion in money printed. And now the federal government is juicing it with $2.5 trillion government deficits. And so, yeah, it looks good, but when all that juice runs out,
and Dave, what people are seeing too is this promise that so many people, mayors and people in Congress and the Senate that are they're making promises to the American people that the illegal migrants that are crossing this border are not a real threat to our economy. Matter of fact, AOC just a few weeks ago said they're helping our economy. They're good for our economy. Not to mention that kids are being kicked out of school to make room for migrants. Hospitals are overflooded. We know their sex trafficking is real. Child trafficking is a real issue, an important issue. So when we look at illegal immigration as a whole and the impact that illegal immigration has on the economy, your thoughts?
Yeah, well, that's a great tee up. You only hear half the story. You hear the benefit story, which is cheap labor for the big corporations. You don't hear who pays the costs. Who pays for that? Heather McDonald at the Manhattan Institute, she's a conservative pistol, unbelievable. She wrote a good piece at Manhattan Institute a couple weeks ago, showed the cost for one child education in Los Angeles is $50,000 a year per kid.
Wow.
Right. So across the country, it's 20, 25. But Los Angeles high for 50. So illegal immigrant comes across with 2 kids. So they work hard. They're made in the image of God. This is not a critique against these people.
Sure.
Right. So they're fine. They're working $20,000, $25,000 a year they make. They pay no taxes. They're probably getting benefits. And then the cost to the taxpayer is $100,000 for 2 kids if you're in Los Angeles. Who's paying that tab? Well, education is split 45% to the locality, 45% to the state taxes, and 10% to the feds. So you're paying the bill. So the corporations get the cheap labor. Of course, they love that. They're all telling their congressmen they own the Senate, and they're telling them to vote for the cheap labor. But then they're not telling you, guess who's paying the bill? You at home, right? And so that's just a simplification, but that in a nutshell is what's happening.
Well, I want to thank you so much for being here today. Such great information. What the Liberty University is doing is so important. Encourage people to check that out. Make sure you tell your friends and neighbors and family, your children, grandchildren, all about it. Keep up the great work. David Brat, thank you again for being here.
Thank you, and thanks for all you do. And it's a great interview, and you really have a good knowledge of all the issues. And it's very impressive to see such a understanding. Thank you.
Excellent. Well, we take our marching orders from our members, and they're concerned about all of it. So we'll look forward to having you back with us again soon.
Thank you very much.